Hello everyone, and welcome back to Free to Pain. Tonight we are doing something a little different. Just because it's been literal years since I've done this before and the app has changed a lot since then, I've decided to do sort of a walking tour of the entirety of the Fate Grand Order app. We're going to be going through all the menus, just kind of explaining what they do and giving little examples when I deem it as required. Not going to be going so much in depth to the actual gameplay. A quick tutorial, because admittedly you have to figure that out on your own or you can't play the game. So, but depending on how long things go, I may give some tips and tricks. Hello there, Laura Charles. Welcome to the stream. And good evening, Squishy Werewolf. Always nice to see you. I don't play a lot of FPS games these days. Now that I think about it, the vast majority of my time these days is consumed by gacha games. And some Baldur's Gate, so gacha games and RPGs. Alright, so we are not going to start right here on the main menu with all this stuff, but we're going to go into the menu button down here, and we're going to slide right over to the far left-hand side and go to Formation. We're going to start with this. First up, Party Setup. Let's see. Let me start from the very beginning. And here we have just the party setup. This is just where you can manage your various party setups that you can preload. The nice thing about this too is that you can also set down in the bottom left-hand corner the mystic code you want to use, which can be important depending on which purpose you've made this lineup. Like this first lineup is sort of my generic, clear story quest stuff with maximum prejudice, just firepower, and this stuff I'm trying to level their bond. We got Mash in here, who after Avalon LaFay has some more bond level possibilities to level up. Still working on Bunyan's bond level 10 CE, and as always, Panthecilia is still working on her next gigantic bond level, but this menu is pretty simple. The nice thing is that you can copy a layout. If you just press Edit Party and Copy Party, you copy the entirety of the layout that you're looking at right now, and you can just sort of select one of these other slots, like Party 6, 7, and it'll paste that lineup anywhere in there. So you can like make a similar lineup and then just modify it in small ways. I've never actually bothered to name any of my lineups. I suppose you could do that. Thank you for the follow, Laura Charles. I'll take a look and see what happens. All right. Now, after party setup is the slightly more complicated one, support setup. Now, these are your support servants, which will appear as a potential... I'm going to go to my main one, actually, now that I think about it. Who will appear as potential support servants in the kind of battle prep phase where you pick support servants and the like, assuming the story is letting you pick. And if people are friends with you, they'll get to use the Servant's Noble Phantasm, which is great. I do have to point out that outside of some very specific situations, the support servants that are going to see the most use from your lineup are almost certainly kind of the high-tier support servants. Like, I've got Castor Artori on here, who is part of a lot of high-tier kind of farming setups and boss fights. Same thing with Koi and Sky of is it just Dark? Actually, hold on a sec. This is Koi and Sky of Light, yes. I always get those two mixed up. Who is part of the Koi and Sky system, which is a buster farming setup. And then I've got just some of my higher leveled and more sought after servants in slots. My Penthesilea, who is just my big damage leveled as hard as I possibly could, all golden foos, all beast footprints on their cards, but I'll explain that later. These are just some of my better servants, or ones that I think people will want. Now, that being said, you can have what's called the event one, which you turn off and on, I think, by... Yeah, you can set which ones are your event setup. Now, usually you'll be changing this out fair amount for when a particular event comes up. Like this one was all summer servants, which you can tell by the plethora of swimsuits. Because often in a lot of specific events, certain servants, like in summer ones where it's all swimsuit servants, get bond level bonuses, or material drop bonuses, or just straight up damage bonuses. So, admittedly, sometimes you'll still want to have the good support servants in there, like Castor Artoria or Koyanskaya, because people will still want to be farming effectively during events. So, pretty simple, though admittedly, for newer accounts, you probably won't have to worry about these sort of things that much, because people, I think, often just go for the highest support servants, especially if they're doing farming. They want that double Castor Artoria, they want that double Koyanskaya, because that's what makes those systems work. So, also, you get a fair amount of friend points. You get a free friend point roll every day. So, farming friend points, not the biggest concern in the world. It's certainly nice to have, but not your biggest concern. After the support setup, there's the Spirit Origin list, which is literally just your library of servants. You can filter it if you're looking for specific things. You can filter them by NP type, by Noble Phantasm, by skill, by what buffs they do. Very useful if you're trying to sort of figure out a strategy. But really, this is just how you can look at all the servants you have. And you've got the craft essences as well, command codes, but we'll get to those. So that is the Spirit Origin list, is really just your big library / kind of inventory. Now, Second Archive is a little funny. In a perfect world, if you were being the most streamlined and efficient player ever, you would never need the Second Archive, because Second Archive is storage that you can't easily access without going into this Second Archive menu. Now, why do you have this? Well, because sometimes you are sentimental and you get things like Valentine's Day CEs, like these ones that have the little chocolates above them, that you feel bad about just burning. Sometimes you get the cool commemorative CEs from, like, the movies. Oh, welcome to the chat, Flamingo's Game 774. My day's doing alright. We're just going through a bit of a tutorial for the entire app for Fate Grand Order. Where was I? So yeah, Second Archive, if you have things you're not going to be using regularly and want to get them out of your usual menus, but don't want to burn them for whatever sentimental reason, you can throw them in here. It's a little funny to use sometimes. You have to know which menu you're actually selecting from. And the thing is, Second Archive does have a max limit. You can't just throw everything in here. So sometimes you may fill it up and you'll actually have to make decisions about burning things. Also, if that's a Yai Miko emote, excellent taste. And that goes for the formation menu. Not particularly complicated. If you are concerned about getting friend points and ensuring you have a preloaded party set up for any sort of situation, you may be coming back here a lot, but otherwise, not so much. The enhance menu, on the other hand, you're going to be spending a lot of time in there. And why? We will explain that now. Thank you, Da Vinci. So, the enhance screen is a lot bigger than the formation one, and it has all the things you need to, well, enhance your servants, your craft essences, your individual servants' cards. It's a lot, but we're going to go through it one by one. Some of this may be pretty obvious, but I'm just going to be comprehensive about the whole thing, so we're going to start at the top. Servants. Leveling up. You pick a servant. Go down to the very bottom of the sabers. We got Watanabe no Suna, whose name I have a little trouble pronouncing. Pretty simple. You select your servant. You select one of the embers you have. It should be noted that there are both embers and foos in here. The foos with the little swords mean attack up. Oh, sorry, no. The foos with the horns mean attack up. The foos with the swords mean they're specific foos for sabers. And the foos where you can see no horns and more just of his little ears, those are HP foos. It allows you to upgrade your servant's base health and attack. Pretty simple. And the embers are what you use to level their level up, the XP. There are 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, and 1-star embers. Very quickly, the 1-star and 2-star embers become not particularly useful. The cost for leveling up ramps up pretty quick. And it should be noted that while you can use the classless embers, these ones with the little stars sort of in the top left-hand corner, the best returns for use are the ones that are specific to the class. So if we wanted to level up Watanabe, we would probably use the Saber embers first. Now, this might be completely off base, but a little trick I always like to do is when I'm leveling a servant, I look at how many levels are left until the next ascension, like till it hits the next cap. And I always try and stick to just putting enough embers into them to get halfway, because there is a chance to trigger great or super successes, which will mean you get like a bonus XP. And so sometimes you only need half as many embers to get all the way to the next ascension. But it is a random chance outside of very specific situations. So, just going to let these roll, though you can tap through this to get through this quickly. Alright, we didn't get a trigger there, so we'll go back. I just want to show you the ascension process while we're here as well. Just going to be a little... I've been told this guy resembles a Persona protagonist. Alright, and then we'll probably just finish this off now. Or, you know what? I'm going to keep trying for that success. Nope. No, alright. We're just going to finish this off. Once it gets down to a couple 3-star embers, trying to preserve them isn't really worth your time. Ah, there's that lovely level limits sound. So, once you hit the cap, then you can hit Ascension. And assuming you have the materials, which are often the little statues specific to the classes, you can hit the little Ascension button. And I believe this is just going into their second Ascension, so there should be a slight costume change. And a little voice line. Oh yeah, he actually turned to look at us. Ah. Now, on the subject, and see now that it's we're looking down the barrel of the next ascension, they start adding materials, not just the class statues. But I'll talk more about materials later when we get to the daily quests. Sorry, Da Vinci. One thing I did want to mention, though, is that while the 7 basic classes, Saber, Archer, Lancer, Rider, Caster, Assassin, and Berserker, all do have embers that are specific to their classes, and you should use those before you use anything else when leveling up those classes. There are, by this point, not a insignificant amount of what are called extra classes, like the Ruler class, the Avenger class, the Shielder class, pardon me, the Foreigner class, which is still a funny name, the very rare Pretender class, but that's a bit of a spoiler. Let's see, we also got Alter Ego classes, which there's not a whole lot of. The Moon Cancer class, which there's even less of. And I think that's all the classes, yeah. So there's almost as many extra classes now, if not, as there are the base classes. Now, there are no embers that are specific to any of these classes. So when leveling them, unless you want to be grossly inefficient about it, you want to use the classless embers. So, which is one of the reasons that I say always use the class-specific embers for the classes that are appropriate for it, because you want to save the classless embers for the event you get one of these extra classes. Because extra classes can be pretty neat in terms of their abilities and can fill in nice little niches. Like, if you can get a Foreigner class, very good against Berserkers. They are effective against Berserkers in ways that the other classes are not. So, and one other thing I did want to mention that Santa Samba. Now, you may notice that despite us having available attack up foos here, we cannot select them. That's because I have already leveled up this particular servant, Santa Samba Quetzalcoatl, Christmas servant, to a certain threshold. And beyond that, you need to use golden foos, or you can't even select non-golden foos. You see there's one golden HP foo up in there, mostly because I've been saving all my golden HP foos for support servants. And Santa Samba Quetzalcoatl is not a support servant. Not really. Now, skills is where the game gets you, in my opinion. So, we're going to go to Coin Sky of Light here. Now, skills are what really can make or break a servant, especially support servants like Coin Sky of Light here, because a lot of support servants are brought in specifically for their skills, and only, like a lot of the systems, like how to 3-turn farm things, those systems are built upon the idea that the support servants have their skills at level 10, which can be very expensive in terms of QP, like the money in the game. When you start getting to like level 8, 9, and 10, it is often millions of QP per level up, not to mention oftentimes some very rare materials. Now, it looks like I have a lot of materials, but I have been both playing this game for literal years now, and I'm also often very selective about the servants I actually level their skills up all the way. So don't let my large amount of like the gold materials here fool you. You need sometimes to really farm. It can often be worth it to at least level a skill to 5, because it can reduce the cooldown of the skill, usually by at least 1 turn, and sometimes that can make all the difference. And the crunchy numbers for a skill, like actually saying how much NP charge this skill does, for instance, like if you hold down on the skill, it'll show you increases NP gauge and reduces skill cooldown by 2 for a single ally. It doesn't tell you the exact number of how much it increases the MP gauge. You often may want to look that up online. It's a little easier than rooting around in the in the game for that. I know for a fact that once it's fully leveled, Koinskaya's skill here increases a servant's NP charge by 50%, which is one of the reasons the Koinskaya system works. But skills are what will probably be the cause of most of your farming in the game, because unlike craft essences of a certain rarity, unlike a lot of 1 to 3 star servants and the occasional 4-star servants, you cannot get materials from the free friend point gacha. The free friend point gacha will get you a lot of stuff that will help you play the game. It'll get you craft essences, it'll get you embers, it'll get you some servants that, if you invest in them, can be quite useful despite being free. Materials, you have to go and farm them. And one, that can be time consuming, and two, you can't always farm for the material you need. It might be locked behind a level in the story that you haven't reached yet. Like, certain nodes in the story are the only places you can farm certain materials outside of events. And also, sometimes it's just a matter of timing. Some of the daily quests rotate, so some materials can only be farmed on certain days of the week. But I'll show you more about that when we get to a different menu. Now, craft essences are similar to leveling servants in a way, except there are no, like, embers for craft essences. Basically, what you want to do is take other lower level craft essences that you are not using or have already, like, 4 copies, especially like the 1 and 2 star ones, and you just feed them to existing craft essences to level them up. Especially early on, that's why I don't recommend engaging the automatic burn function for like friend point gachas, because in the beginning you want as many craft essences as you can get so you can level up the better ones. One of the other probably biggest mechanic involved in craft essences is what's called the max limit break. Craft essences have effects, they have abilities, they are like equipment. The thing is, they will be significantly increased once you feed 4 identical copies of it to the 5th one. That does what's called max limit breaking. For example, this particular one, which is a very useful low-level one you can get from the friend point gacha, it just gives your servant a flat 50% charge to start, which is very useful because there are a not insignificant amount of servants that have a 50% charge in their own skills. So potentially, you could then shoot off an MP on your first turn, which can be very useful, very powerful. The stats are useful. It's always nice to have additional HP or attack, but most of the time, if you are trying to decide between 2 CEs, if you're going for an offensive servant, pick one that has all attack. If you're looking for something for a support servant, pick one that has all HP. But of course, the effect comes first, and often if you see a CE with split stats, like it increases both HP and attack, it's kind of a disappointment because it's never going to be, the best at either then. But if you have a CE you always want to try and max limit break it. Sometimes that might be not easy if it's coming off of a banner, but yeah, sometimes it's maybe worth to try. That's why, admittedly, when a good CE comes up in an event where you can buy copies of it from the event shop, that's always a really good thing to try and jump on, because then you eliminate the gacha from the equation. You don't have to necessarily rely on luck. Sometimes you have to rely on luck to get a 5th copy to drop, because the shop sometimes only has 4 copies, but yeah, sometimes that's how it is. One note here on something that I'm not going to explain a lot because I'm not the most knowledgeable about it, but there is a practice when leveling CEs called CE bombs, which in the most simplistic terms is taking a low-level craft essence, feeding it a whole bunch of other low-level craft essences until it is reached its max level. The max level you can level something changes every time you feed another copy to itself. And then when that one's full, you feed it to a slightly higher one and repeat the process as I understand it. And then eventually you feed that to a 5-star craft essence that you want to level up a lot. Because it's something about accumulating the experience in small parts. Because just feeding craft essences, especially the higher level ones, just a whole bunch of craft essences rather than one that's been really leveled up is apparently inefficient in terms of QP, because it costs QP to feed. Yeah, the turducken of CEs. It costs more to do it piecemeal than trying to do it as bombs. If you are interested in this, and I would recommend at least looking it up once, there are a lot of tutorials on YouTube about it. It's a good practice. To give it a quick look. It's a good practice. Ascension, if you reached an ascension while leveling someone up and couldn't do it because you didn't have materials, you can come here and do it. It'll show you who's available. I'm never possibly ever gonna level up Gilderay Saber all the way because he's not a useful servant. He's kind of weird, and I'm not motivated to. So that one menu is pretty simple. Can also be done through that button in the level up screen, so you may not come here very often. Bond level release. Now this is an interesting one that's probably not going to come up for people for a while, because bond leveling takes a while. You have to be constantly giving them bond levels, and you can only have bond levels for servants who are in your party, and that can take a while. But once you reach level 10, if you want to keep leveling your servant's bond beyond level 10 and potentially get some big quartz payouts, I think every level beyond 10 you get like 10 quartz. You have to come here, click on a servant who's applicable, and you have to feed them this item, which is the, I think, Chaldea Lantern? Lantern of Chaldea. That will unlock an additional level of bond, which costs millions of QP, and also the bond level from like 11 to, or 10 to 11 is probably like millions of bond level. It takes a while. This is a very end game kind of thing for your favorite servants. It can be worth it. You also get a bunch of servant coins for subsequent bond levels past 10, like a bunch, but I'll talk about servant coins in a bit. So, you won't level up bond levels a lot past 10. You don't get a lot of lanterns, for one thing, but it can be quite nice, and it's a good way to mark a servant that you have really bonded with and have invested a lot of time with. Now, command codes are an interesting little function. So let's look at Space Ishtar, for instance. So every servant in the game comes with their little deck of cards, denoting they're kind of leaning in terms of card type. Space Ishtar has both Buster and Arts cards in doubles here and one quick card. So she's more of a damagey and possibly a bit of a Arts damagey one. Now, command codes are ways for you to attach additional abilities to specific cards. And that will come up if you use that specific card to attack something. Like, there are command codes you can put on that will do extra damage to beasts, or will heal your character for a small amount. There are a fair amount of command codes. Not all of them are particularly useful. Not to mention the fact that every time you want to unlock one of these cards to put a command code on it, it requires one of these keys, which can only be purchased in the shop or acquired in events. So, not the most, unless you really go out of your way to acquire them every time an event comes along, they are not going to accumulate very fast. So you have to be picky about who you're upgrading the command cards, and as you can see, just unlocking one costs 1,000,000 QP. Um, I will actually quickly go back to second archive, or back to the formation one, just to show you what a command cards look like. So these are command cards, things I've accumulated over many events, and for example, one of the 5-star ones, with Benny Enma here, apply 15% special attack chaotic effect and 15% special attack evil effect to the engraved card. So, Benny Enma already has a Noble Phantasm that does extra damage to evil and chaotic servants on top of each other, so this really is another way of really focusing her on that role of being an anti-chaotic and evil servant. So, basically, command codes are a way of nudging your servant even more into a specific role. So, it really comes down to very specific ones like Yang Yufei here has a lot of abilities that work off having the flame or the burn debuff on enemies, so this is another one that gives her a bonus if this particular card would attack something with the burn status. So you will slowly accumulate these. Most of the time you get command cards through command codes, pardon me, through events. Sometimes you can get them in the shop. By now I think there's a decent number in the shop you can buy with prisms. I'll explain prisms when we get to the shop, but they don't come up very often, but they are a nice, useful thing. There are some very useful ones, like I have one on my Penthesilea that if you hit someone with it for a turn, it increases the damage of your Noble Phantasm. So as long as you're paying attention, you can notice that ahead of time, and if it comes up, you can use it to make your Noble Phantasm even more damaging. Some of them are very, very niche, but alright, back to the enhance screen. We're getting through this. The enhanced screen is probably the biggest section of this tutorial. Now, command card enhancement is similar to command codes, where it's focusing on the cards specifically, but it's a slightly different thing, and they really added this later. So command code, command card enhancement is very specifically, you are just taking a card and increasing the damage it does. It's very small, it's very incremental, and it's quite expensive. Like boosting this code will, example, just by 20 damage points is going to be 2 million QP. And you get one of these little paws that are required, the beast paws, like a week if you don't miss a login. So it takes a long time to level up an entire servant, all their cards, if that's what you want to do. I only have one servant that has that. And I've barely started on other ones. So these are another way to just further amplify a servant's damage and power, but it does take a long time to do, and it's a pretty big money sink. So to make it worthwhile, you really gotta be playing. Now append skills. Append skills are an interesting mechanic. They are, sometimes people have referred to them as a whales mechanic, because append skills, and I'll just sort of show this. Append skills require servant coins. Servant coins are something you only get by increasing bond levels and by getting additional copies of a servant. And you need a fair amount of coins to do anything. For instance, unlocking these append skills, which I should mention, append skills are basically additional passive abilities. Like the one I've unlocked for Penthesilea is every battle now she starts with an addition, like a flat 20% charge of her NP already done. So that's pretty nice. She already starts with her NP charged 20% at the start of every fight. That probably cost 120 servant coins. And you don't get a lot of servant coins for every bond level necessarily, or for every copy. It takes a fair amount. The fact that I have one actually done is a testament to how much bond level I've unlocked for Penthesilea. Servant coins are not something you really need to worry about until you start playing a lot of, because it takes a lot of coins to unlock any of these abilities. And it should be also noted that servant coins, I think, are also required. Trying to think. I think servant coins are also required to increase max level cap. Like, look at this. Yeah, so usually you can only increase the level of a servant with Holy Grails up to 100. Once you reach 100, it requires servant coins for every, like, 2 levels. And servant coins, as previously mentioned, are a very rare resource. So you really have to decide what's more important, pen skills or leveling your servant up. Admittedly, not all pen skills are particularly useful, and increasing max level of servants can be good depending on which servant it is, because when you increase something's level, you are increasing their max stats a little bit. So, but as you can see, increasing Penth just her cap up to 102 from 100 is 12 million QP. So, again, anything involving servant coins is a bit of a whales game, but it can be useful, especially if you really like a servant and you want them to perform well. Usually, I should just mention, usually leveling a servant past or up to past their cap only requires a Holy Grail, which you usually get at the end of chapters. But it does only do it at 2 at a time. So to get Iboki Doji here from a max cap of 90 to 100 would take, 5 Holy Grails. And that's potentially 5 events worth of Holy Grails, or 5 singularities worth. So you got to be a little selective. Holy Grails, while they will accumulate over time, there's a finite amount of them that you can earn. You can't, well, I'll get to that later, but Holy Grails can be a bit of a rare resource if you're not plowing through the story and not doing all the events to completion, mind you, too. You have to complete an event to get the Holy Grail. And it's also expensive, 9 million QP. Oh, we're almost done. Now, Unlock Wardrobe is kind of a silly and entirely non-gameplay involving thing, except for one servant. There's one servant that interacts with servants who have costumes. So, as you go through events, you can unlock costumes for servants. Sometimes the costumes are just a pair of sunglasses. And not only do you have to earn the costume in the event, purchasing it in the shop, you then have to unlock the costume to be that you can put on the servant using materials. And sometimes those materials are 5-star materials. So I'm not ever probably going to do this one because it's just a pair of sunglasses and costs quite a bit of materials and QP. Other costumes are much more dramatic and interesting, so they might be worth it. But I think that's everything for the enhanced screen, which is probably the biggest thing here. So, yay, we did that one. All right, next up, the fun thing that is a lot easier to explain, the summon screen. You will probably figure out almost everything to learn about the summon system just by playing the game, but just as a quick summary, you can do ticket rolls here, where you get a summon ticket. You can do 1 roll at a time. Every 10 tickets you get an additional free roll. The button will turn blue. Pretty intuitive. You can do the 10 rolls, which do give you an additional summon right off the bat. 30 quartz, or 15 for the paid ones, which come up twice a year. And if you have paid quartz that you don't feel like saving for the next lucky banner, once a day you can do a 1 quartz roll. I don't really recommend doing this unless you're a whale. It should be noted there is a pity system in FGO, but you have to roll a lot. You have to do, I think something like 30 rolls to get a guaranteed. And if there's multiple 5 stars or something, it gets a little messy. And it doesn't carry over from one banner to the next like it does in Genshin. Every pity system is specific to a banner. So again, unless you're a whale, you're probably never going to interact with the pity system. And it does sort of explain this here, but every roll you are at least guaranteed 1 4-star or above card. If you just get a 4-star CE, that's what's called a min roll, which is always a little sad to see. So, yeah, sometimes there are multiple banners. Now, the story banner is kind of funny. The story banner is interesting in that it is always there, and it does get more and more servants added to it based on the current state of the game right now, and how far your story progression has gone. But I would not recommend rolling on the story one. It has so many characters in it, the odds of you getting one that you want or even like is very low. There are certain ones that can only be gotten from the story one outside of banners that are about them, but I just don't think it's worth it. Some people sort of do meme accounts where they only roll in the story banner and make do with that, which could be fun if that's your mindset, but I would not recommend it. I have almost never rolled on the story banner, even as a joke, and gotten a good result. It just doesn't happen very often. And of course, there's the friend point gacha, which will also get things added to it as the story goes along, and they very slowly add new servants to this. Like you see back there, all but Ku were added later on in the game's system. Now, I'm going to roll here for my 10 roll, for my free 10 roll, and I'm just going to show you how I've got mine set up these days. Oh. Actually, I'm just going to skip through this. Now, because I have reached such a size of my account, I've got so much stuff, I don't like having to go in and constantly be burning stuff. So any CEs that are, or embers that are like 2-star or lower, I automatically have burned and turned into QP, which just kind of saves me a lot of time. I would not recommend doing this for early accounts, because an early account, all your resources are going to be useful. And you may notice here that in addition to getting the actual servants, you can see you get a little bit of servant coins. Servant coins, you get less servant coins based on the what rarity of the servant. You'll notice Asterion, or Asterios, pardon me, I'm too much Baldur's Gate, is a 1-star servant, and thus he only gets 2 servant coins for every copy. Now, he is a 1-star, so you're going to roll a lot of him, but you saw that the servant coin system requires hundreds of servant coins, or at least dozens for a single thing, so it's going to take a while. Well, Hans, 2-star, a little quicker, he's got 6 per, so yeah. They have also introduced into the system, you will very rarely get these. There is a hidden 4-star in here, Artoria Lily, who is a 4-star saber, not a bad servant, especially for early accounts. And even more rare is I think he's essentially a 0-star servant, is Angraminyu, the first Avenger servant in the franchise, who is kind of a joke servant. I think he doesn't become really actually useful in any capacity until you get him Bond 10, because his Bond craft essence has some very interesting effects. Oh, I should mention this here, I guess. I should have mentioned this in the CE section, but servants have what's called a Bond CE, which is a craft essence which you are automatically given for free and max leveled when your servant hits Bond level 10. They are a craft essence that only that servant can use and often has some effect that's specific to them that kind of plays into their identity or how their playstyle goes. Not a lot of them are worth using unless you have like nothing else good. Like Penthesilea, who I have unlocked quite a while ago, she has one that just gives her and her entire team a flat buster increase, but I think it also has her take more damage, which for Berserker is not something you want. So, not really worth it for her. There are other CEs that are just better and don't have the downside. But on the other hand, there are a few that are incredibly useful, like St. George's, that when you put it on him and he dies, he gives the rest of the party like 2 hits of invincible, which can be incredibly useful, especially considering he is a taunt servant. So you can kind of control when he dies and how he protects the rest of your units. His is one of the best in the game, and you should always put St. George in the back row if you have points to spend in deployment. Alright. That is the entirety of the summon menu, I guess. And then we will move on to the shop. Yes, okay. Assuming my page will load. I'll also quickly take a drink here. I've been talking a lot. Alright. So, the shop. The shop is a lot more complex than it used to be. I'm just going to click. Thank you, Da Vinci. Burning is essentially where you're going to go for getting rid of servants that you don't need anymore. You don't need to worry about the servant coins. The servant coins are added to your inventory the moment they appear. Even if you burn the duplicate servants, you won't lose the servant coins. Thank you, Da Vinci. Most of the time, you are just going to be burning 1, 2, and 3-star servants. It's very unlikely that you'll be burning 4-star servants because you can always... oh, I think I forgot the Noble Phantasm menu. Once you get duplicates of servants, you can go to... You know what, I'll just show you. Somehow I missed that. When you get duplicate servants, this is where you go. You'll select a servant, and then you select an additional copy you got in one of these menus, and you enhance it, and it levels up their Noble Phantasm, which will increase the damage and the percentage effects. So it's always very nice, and sometimes is game-breaking for certain servants. Like Space Ishtar is made so much better at arts farming when she has at least one more level in her Noble Phantasm. I got very lucky when I got that. So... yeah. Da Vinci's very chatty because this is her shop. Most of the time when you go to the shop, you're going to be going to the Mana Prism shop. Mana Prisms are something you get by burning 3-star things and above. 5-star things, I think, get rare prisms, but I'll talk about that in a bit. Mana Prisms are primarily used to purchase things from the shop, which resets every month. We've got some New Year's Eve stuff in here right now, which is limited time, but is cheaper than usual, so it's kind of worth grabbing up. Every month it will reset with a limited number of the keys, of the command code remover, of non-gold foos, and sometimes we now have some copies of command codes. A couple of these are maybe worth it. Now we go back into the regular ones, and there's usually XP cards as well. some more command codes, some limited time stuff from New Year's. Though one of the things you always want to grab right at the start of the month is the 5 summon tickets in here, because that's always nice. It's free rolls. Well, not free, you have to pay for it, but it's chances to roll on banners without having to get quartz. Now, I'm going to focus on things that I've already purchased here, but the Chaldea Tea Time, Chaldea Lunchtime, and any CE that increases bond levels when you receive them are one of the ones you should probably try and buy, because bond level farming is hard, and anything that can increase it, especially by percentages rather than just flat amounts, can be very useful in the long run. So it will cost 5,000 to get 5 copies of one, which is a lot, especially starting off, but is worth it in the long run. So keep that in mind as something you should probably invest in. Pure prisms are a mechanic they added later on in the game. Pure prisms are acquired by doing story content, and only story content, I think. So like events, you won't get pure prisms. And pure prisms are just sort of a stopgap measure to help you get, the 1 or 2 materials you might be missing to level a skill. Most of these, I think all of well, no. Some of these are for leveling, like Proof of Heroes. Some... Actually, yeah, they're all skill and ascension materials. I would pay special attention to some of them, like, I think... like Mystic Gunpowder, Bells of Absolution, Seeds of Yggdrasil. There's a lot of materials in here that can only be acquired from certain daily quests, but mostly, endlessly being able to farm them once you reach a certain point in the story. Like, I'll go down to like the 5-star ones. Where are they? Actually, I'm sure. Okay, yeah, like the Eggs of Truth. Those can only be farmed once you reach one of the Lost Belts, which, whoo boy, that's a little ways into the story. Mysterious Divine Wine, I remember having to farm a lot of that for Penthesilea. You can't get by farming until Epic of Remnant. Like, I don't think you can actually get any 5-star, which you can click on to look at, I think. No. Some of these are 5-star. You can only get 5-star ones from farming. You can't get them from the daily quests. So, you will start off getting a lot of pure prisms when you still have a lot of story content, but spend them wisely. It has become a little easier to get rare prisms nowadays. They sometimes give them away as part of like campaigns to celebrate certain things, but rare prisms are usually pretty difficult to acquire. Usually they're only acquired by burning or selling high-level things, which usually you wouldn't do unless it's like a welfare servant, which you already have 5 copies of, and you won't need any more. Like, you can't... having... It used to be you might worry about servant coins, but now that you just get them, you get the servant coins anywhere, or they have ways to buy servant coins for welfare servants in events. So holding on to extraneous copies of welfare servants is pointless, and sometimes they'll automatically burn them for you. Rare prisms are useful because they are one of the only ways you can get lanterns to increase the bond limit. Crystallized lore outside of events. And sometimes there are like whole quests, like All the Statesmen or the main interlude. But those cost 5 rare prisms to unlock. Admittedly, it's an entire mini campaign, so it's probably worth it. And there are some old CEs and some mystic codes. Honestly, you would have to sort of go this particular shop on a case-by-case basis, so I would maybe look it up. A lot better, more experienced players will have advice for you online, so especially the mystic codes, like the clothing for your character, some of them are worth it, some of them are not. And it does cost 5 rare prisms, which is a pretty hefty investment, which for something that you do already have to level up. So I suppose I should mention mystic codes too, but I'll talk about that when we get to another section. Yeah, so there's a fair amount of stuff in here. I would look them up before spending the rare prisms. Rare prisms are hard to get. Dressmaking. This is Miss Crane, our resident magical tailor. She was introduced in the Idol event, which part of it, there were a lot of costumes you could get for servants. Oftentimes you have to try and get the costumes in an event, but they've started adding a lot more to this shop in case you missed one, especially some of the older ones that people just don't have a chance to get anymore. But they are expensive, like 1,000 normal prisms to get Bedivere his butler outfit, 500 to just turn Saber's sword invisible, or 5 rare prisms to get Arthur prototype his tux. Again, personal preference, how much you want to invest in a servant and how much you like the outfit. My advice is just try and get them during the event, then you don't have to spend prisms on it. And then, finally, we have, I'm not even going to click on them, but expand Second Archive Servant and expand Second Archive CE. You won't have to worry about this possibility for a while, and even when you do have to, I would recommend not doing it. It's very expensive and you only get like 5 additional slots. It's just not efficient. Exchange Saint Court Fragments is something you're going to do through kind of the daily quest menu anyway, so I'll just show you there when we go back to the main menu. Exchange Tears of the Holy Grail is a rare mechanic that you can see it was up in the corner for a minute there. Usually only involves the Grail Front events, where every time you beat a map you get 1 tier, and once you have 7 tiers you can turn them into Holy Grail. Holy Grail casting, I'm not even going to go into the menu, is a weird mechanic. I'm not sure if it's sticking around or something, or I guess you only get 2 of them for every like month or something. Basically, it's a way to turn excess servant coins into Holy Grails, which again, very kind of whale-based thing. You're not often going to have an excessive amount of servant coins, so people starting off will almost certainly not have to look at that. Plus, it's not unlocked until much later in the story. Sell special ascension materials is if after you do an event that you already did and you get some specific material that comes with an event that you already have more than you need of, you can sell here for like just QP. And special summon is something that almost no one will ever see again. This is what happens when you get... Oh. If you ever get a 6th copy of a 5-star servant, they will give you one of these, or possibly more, of these special summon things. Or, pardon me, the little wheels there in the corner that you can then exchange for free copies of servants. But I haven't done this once in... I've not gotten one of these little wheel tokens once in how many years I'm playing. This is very much a whale mechanic, so we can just kind of ignore it. Friends and following is pretty simple. You can look at all the people you're following on your friends list. You can send one out. You can search for people. One thing I should note is that if you ever want to start clearing people out of here, go down to like the bottom, look at people who have not even filled out their support servant lineup, and click confirm support setup on the right hand side, and you'll see. But hopefully you won't have to clear anyone out. They've gradually increased the number of friend slots you can have. All that's left is the My Room function, which I barely ever go to, honestly. Here is where you can review the story cutscenes without having to actually play them and stuff. You can review all the lines that your servants say. You can review your inventory of items. You can change music and stuff. Really just sort of housekeeping kind of stuff. I barely ever use this. Though one thing I would recommend, I'm not going to open it up, but when you first get the app and you are satisfied that you probably don't want to lose your account, like you've made enough progress or you've gotten lucky, go through the process in the issue transfer number thing just to get the backup code for your account. And put it somewhere safe, like on a bulletin board in your house, in a drawer, on your phone maybe. So if something ever happens to your account, that's the information you're going to need to transfer it to a new device. And it should be noted that usually you can't, it's without the number, you can't do that. You can't switch your account to the app on your phone. They don't cross platforms. It's per device. I've got one on my phone and one on my tablet. Pardon me, I need to take a drink. All right. I don't use this particular menu a lot, so I'm not going to give you a big tour of it. There's stuff to explore here. None of it is particularly gameplay related. So I'm trying to think now. What else do I have to go over? Oh, I'm going to go quickly back just because I want to talk about the Model 2 formation, party setup, and then I'm going to show off down here in the bottom left. We have Master Equip, which is all our Mystic Codes. Now, Mystic Codes are things we accrue, honestly, mostly through events. This one was through a summer event. This one was a New Year's one, I think. Or, no, this was the Benny Enma event, which was a New Year's event, but was also tied to an event. This was tied to Saber Wars 2, I think. This was tied to the summer camp. This was tied to the most recent Halloween event, and so forth. This one, you see it even changes our pose much more dramatically, is acquired through story progression. Now, each Mystic Code comes with 3 abilities, and the abilities grow stronger, and the cooldown is reduced the more you level them up. Some of them are very useful. Some are much more niche useful. Some are kind of general abilities. Some are about boosting Buster kind of servant gameplay. This one, there we go. The plug suit, it's called, is very useful because it has an incredibly unique skill where you can change the order of your servants. And a stun, which is also very useful. Now, thankfully the plug suit is actually not difficult to obtain, and I will kind of show you. And plug suits, Mystic Codes, by the way, are leveled up just by wearing them. So if you want to level up the abilities of a specific Mystic Code, you just have to make sure it's equipped while you're playing. Some of them level up quicker than others. It took me a long time to level up the plug suit. But where do you get the Mystic Codes? Well, so in the main menu, I'm going to start with all the stuff that's quicker. All your previously done story campaigns will be here. like these things that you can click on. And they have the repeatable nodes that you can farm for materials and XP and bond levels. I would look up, if you're looking for specific materials, look up what you're looking for. Don't try, finding it on your own. It'd be a waste of time. And initially, these will have a sort of mini quest that if you do it 3 times, you get some Saint Quartz once. And every 10 of these little mini quests you do, you might unlock an achievement which will give you like 10 quartz. So whenever you finish a story campaign and it unlocks all of the mini quests on a particular map, do them. It's worth it. You get XP, you get materials, you get quartz, and you get possible achievements unlocked. Now, below the story nodes, there is main record, which is, main record 1.5 is where all the Epic of Remnant stuff is, which is the sort of 4-part mini campaign that happened in between part 1 and 2. They also have story nodes and materials to farm. And main record 1 is part 1. Once you complete all the singularities, they all get put into here. So we've got Babylonia, Camelot, etc., etc. Now you should note, I do have some quests here apparently, but the thing is those are something else I'll get to in a minute. I've done all the mini quests. Oh, and main interludes are large story chapters that sometimes you... Actually, pardon me. Main interludes used to be like timed events that really should have been part of the main campaign. Like they're big enough, they have enough characterization, and they sort of do affect the overall plot in subtle ways, like especially introducing characters and concepts. I don't know about Merry Christmas in the Underworld, it's just old enough that sometimes these will become available to purchase in the shop with like rare prisms, and then you can do them even long after you miss the event. So, but the main one you're going to be going to almost daily on this menu is the Chaldea Gate. And Chaldea Gate has at least these 3 things are always here. Daily quests, interludes, and rank ups. But sometimes you will have trial quests like we had with New Year's, where you can try out a servant. You'll probably get rewarded a single summon ticket for doing it. They're almost never hard. Fun little things. But if you haven't unlocked them already, this is where there's going to be, I think, 3 Mystic Code acquisition quests. It's got probably a few nodes in it. They might be a little challenging, but it is very much worth it because once you're done, you get the Mystic Code that you can then start wearing and start leveling up. This is where you get the plug suit. So I would recommend doing that as soon as you can, because it does take a while to level them up and you want to start wearing it as much as possible. But the thing you're probably going to be coming here from the most, especially early on, is the daily quests. Now, there's 3 kinds of daily quests. There are the Ember Gathering quests, which just drop embers and are always the same enemies, just these weird hands, and these will rotate on a daily basis. Every time there's a reset, they change the types, so to farm certain embers, you have to know which day. I would look that up online. I cannot, off the top of my head, tell you what the rotation is. Then there are the training grounds, which also rotate daily, but this is where you get materials and stuff. They will drop embers, but they'll also drop other things. The more difficult the node, the more stuff it drops, and the rarer stuff it drops. If you ever are curious, I'm pressing the little exclamation point under the class symbol, and that'll show you previously what has potentially dropped in these nodes. This is where you're going to farm a lot of the materials. Okay, so it does have a... I'm not sure if this is a 4-star or 5-star ember, but sometimes you'll get... I didn't actually mean to do that. Now, the final kind of daily quests are the treasure vaults, which is just, it's flat QP farming. You get like 3 waves of treasure doors. They're always casters. This never changes. You will do this more than often than you think, especially in the end. But once you get a good AoE rider servant, this becomes very easy and a good way to just farm QP. And then the only other things I think we have left to discuss, it should also be noted, well, hold on, I'll finish this menu first. Interludes are mini story chapters, which are often unlocked by getting a servant to a certain ascension and by getting their bond level up to a certain level. They explore the servants' backstories, their new stories based on how you met them in the story, and they will often either just reward you with quartz, or sometimes they'll improve a skill or a noble phantasm. That's what the little symbol there is. I think that's a skill up or a noble phantasm up. They vary in length and complexity. Okay, that's a noble phantasm up, I think. This one with the sword, that's a skill up. Sometimes they will have formation restricted. Some of them can be a little challenging. You look at the recommended level. And for every like 10 of these, you'll get another 10 Saint Quartz. So it is worth doing. They're just a little more time consuming than other things because they are story things, so there's actual dialogue. So that's why I haven't done a lot of them. I'm a busy man. And then finally, there's the rank up quests, which are just no story. It's just flat up skill improvements for the servants, and some Saint Quartz. I do a lot of these when I can. You often only just have to unlock a certain ascension. Bond levels aren't required because you're not, being let in on the story of their lives. So do these when you can, but because it does cost a lot of resources sometimes to level a servant all the way to 4, pick your battles. If it's a servant you know you're going to be using, get that skill up. But pick your battles. And again, for every 10 of these you complete, you'll get another 10 Saint Quartz. So, but where can you track that? Well, I will let you know right here in the Master Missions. Oh, I'll let Mash do her thing. So, this used to be much easier to navigate. Well, there was less of it. So there, every day, if you do just 3 quests, any 3 quests, it could be in the Chaldea Gate, it could be farming a mini story one in a completed chapter. As long as you do 3 a day, you're going to get 30 mana prisms. Pretty good. Then there are the weekly quests, which each reward 3 Saint Quartz shards. Every 7 of those, you get to get 1 Saint Quartz by clicking on the Fragment Exchange button, or going to the shop, but it's a little easier just to do it here. These vary a lot. Sometimes you may need to look up, like, where can I find a good servant? But that's a quick Google search. And certain things, like I think Reddit often will have like a breakdown for people for the week where you can go for all the quests, but sometimes just playing the story you'll complete it anyway. Extra ones are where you find the ones based on like the interludes and the strengthening quests, or pardon me, the rank up quests. Like I've got only 2 more rank up quests and I'll get another 10 Saint Quartz. So that's pretty nice. This is where also you get ones for tutorial stuff, like perform 70 Front Point summons. I did that ages ago. So it's worth keeping an eye on these because payouts can be quite nice. And finally, the limited time ones, which are limited time and don't necessarily come up very often. Always good to check it though. Again, payouts are always nice to get. And finally, yeah, I'm not sure they ever bring it up, but down here we do have the command spells. Command spells are quite useful for hard boss fights because you can, if you have 3 of them, you'll have the option to revive your entire team. Or you can spend 1 at a time to like immediately charge someone's Noble Phantasm or completely heal them. I only usually ever do the full heal, or the full party heal. Once you spend the command spells, it takes a day to get 1 back, so if you spend all 3, it's going to be 3 resets before you have them all back. But that's kind of a combat thing. And that, I think, press the terminal, get back to the main menu. That, I think, is the vast majority of the app. There's the mailbox too, but you can figure out a mailbox in a video game. Oh, and there's news as well. You can click up here to look at all the recent news and everything. Though admittedly, clicking on a lot of these things, if you want more details, you might as well just go to the FGO NA website rather than having to look at it on your device. But yeah, I think that's the majority. I'm probably not going to go over combat now. I might do a separate video for this. This has already been an hour and 20 minutes, and you learn combat by playing, so. But yeah, I hope this has been helpful to everyone. Probably not the experienced players, but to any new people, I hope it has been helpful. I'm probably going to make a YouTube video of this stream, or at least pin part of it as a VOD. So it should be there for future if anyone needs to point to it to new players. But yeah, we got the Rain's case file event coming up. I might stream some farming of the Barbados raid if timing works out, if it doesn't get down before I get home from work or something. But until then, everyone, thank you for joining me, and until next time, may all your hits be crits and all your rolls be golden. Have a good night, everyone.